On an ordinary Monday morning, the 26th of February 2024, a 13-year-old girl named Madeline Soto was dropped off near her school like she was every school day. She never walked through the doors. By that evening, someone close to Jennifer Soto, Madeline's mother, called 911.
911, what's the location of your emergency? And do you need police, fire, or medical?
Police, possibly. I'm reporting a missing child.
Okay, and the child that you're trying to report missing, are you calling on behalf of the parent?
Yes, on behalf of the mother.
Okay.
My daughter was dropped off close to school this morning but never made it. Jennifer explained that she'd gone to pick Madeline up from Hunters Creek Middle School around 4:30 that afternoon, only to be told her daughter had never been marked present. Not for one class, not for any period. All day. She said she'd already checked with the school, checked with Madeline's teacher, checked her daughter's phone messages, and found nothing. Madeline had been dropped off, she said, half a block from campus, and had walked the rest of the way alone, the same as any other morning. Police began working the case that night. What they didn't know yet was that the man who dropped Madeline off that morning, her mother's longtime boyfriend, 37-year-old Stephan Sterns, was about to become the center of one of the most disturbing investigations Central Florida had seen in years. Because the next time Madeline was seen, it would be her body, hidden in the woods. Madeline Sophia Soto was born on February 22, 2011, meaning she had just turned 13, 4 days before she vanished. She was a student at Hunters Creek Middle School, described by people who knew her as quiet, sweet, and a little withdrawn. She struggled with anxiety, and she'd been diagnosed with ADD. She lived with her mother Jennifer in a house in a well-kept gated community, a home Jennifer could afford in part because she rented out 2 of the 4 bedrooms to tenants. Stephan Sterns wasn't officially one of those tenants. He was Jennifer's boyfriend of roughly 7 years, though by early 2024 he wasn't living there full-time. He'd relocated to Northport, Florida, to work with his father, but he still came back to Kissimmee 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes staying for a week at a stretch. That week in February, he was staying at the house. Investigators moved fast, the way they have to when a 13-year-old goes missing, and every hour matters. They asked Jennifer and Stephan to come in for interviews and asked to search the family home. Neither refused. And it was during that search that police started to notice something was off about the way that household actually worked. With 2 rooms rented out to tenants, there were only 2 bedrooms left for 3 people: Jennifer, Madeline, and Stephan. The master bedroom belonged to Jennifer. Stephan had a second bedroom of his own, technically, though the arrangement between him and Jennifer had reportedly been unstable over the previous year. Madeline, meanwhile, didn't have a proper bedroom at all. She slept in a makeshift space on the first floor, separated off by partition walls. And according to both Jennifer and Stephan, on many nights, including the night before Madeline disappeared, she didn't sleep there either. She slept in bed with her mother and her mother's boyfriend, or sometimes with Stephan alone, because Jennifer said Madeline didn't like sleeping by herself and had separation anxiety. That was exactly the arrangement on the night of February 25, 2024, the night before Madeline vanished. Jennifer told investigators she'd gotten home from work, taken something to help her sleep, and needed a full night's rest before a long day ahead. So she told Stephan to sleep in the guest room and told Madeline to sleep there with him. The next morning, Stephan said, he and Madeline woke up around 7 a.m. Jennifer didn't see either of them before they left. Stephan told police he dropped Madeline off near the school, close enough that she could walk the rest of the way, and that he watched her walk in the right direction before he drove off. When detectives asked why he hadn't just driven her to the front door like Jennifer usually did, he told them Madeline was embarrassed of his car, an old silver Lincoln, and had asked to be let out early. Then, he said, he went to a vape shop that turned out to be closed, went home for about an hour, ran a few errands at gaming stores, got a flat tire, and didn't make it back to the house until around 2:30 in the afternoon. It sounded like an ordinary, forgettable morning. It fell apart almost immediately once detectives started checking it. The gated community where the family lived had its own security cameras at the entrance. When investigators pulled that footage, they saw Stephan's silver Lincoln leaving that morning, right on schedule. But something in the passenger seat didn't look right. There was a girl in a green sweater sitting in the front seat, and she wasn't sitting the way someone sits when they're awake and about to be dropped off at school. She was slumped over to one side, head down, motionless. At the same time, investigators had asked Stephan for permission to search his phone. He agreed, but he told detectives there was a problem.
I don't know what the heck I did, but somehow during the massive OS update, I managed to factory reset my phone.
At some point that day, his phone had been factory reset. He said it happened by accident, during a routine software update. Detectives found that explanation hard to believe, and Stephan's own father would later tell police the same thing, that he didn't see how a phone update could accidentally wipe someone's entire device. It turned out the phone hadn't been reset once. Police found it had been wiped twice within about 12 hours, once on the day Madeline disappeared and again the following night. A factory reset doesn't happen by itself, and it definitely doesn't happen twice by accident. Even with the phone wiped, digital forensic examiners were able to pull data back off the device. What they found on it, and later inside a linked Google Drive account, was hundreds of explicit images and videos. Investigators say the material showed Sterns sexually abusing Madeline, and that the abuse stretched back years, with some of the recovered files dating as far back as 2019 and 2020, when Madeline would have been around 8 or 9 years old. It was, in the most literal sense, everything investigators needed to understand exactly what kind of relationship had existed inside that house, and exactly why Stephan Sterns had been so desperate to erase his phone. At the same time, detectives began running Stephan's license plate through automated plate readers across Orange and Osceola counties, the kind of cameras that quietly track vehicles passing through intersections all day long. His actual route on the morning of February 26 looked nothing like the story he'd given police. Instead of dropping Madeline near the school around 9 a.m. like he claimed, the cameras placed his car nowhere close to the school at that hour. Later that morning, closer to 11 a.m., they placed him back near the gated community, at a dumpster in the complex, where surveillance footage showed him getting out of his car and throwing away 2 large white trash bags. Those bags were recovered. Inside them, investigators found Madeline's school backpack, her laptop and its charger, and one of her Crocs, missing its match. Stephan had also thrown away the spare tire from his car, the same spare he'd claimed had gone flat that morning, as part of his excuse for being late. Detectives brought Stephan in again. He was told, plainly, that he was not free to leave. When they pressed him on the images found on his phone, on the timeline the cameras had already disproven, he asked whether he needed a lawyer. He was arrested on February 28th, initially on charges of sexual battery on a child under 12 and possession of child sexual abuse material, before Madeline's body had even been found. Investigators said at that point they weren't holding out hope for a rescue anymore. What had started as a search and rescue operation had quietly become a search for remains. Jennifer Soto was interviewed as well, repeatedly. When shown the images from Stephan's phone, her first reaction, according to investigators, was to say she didn't recognize anything in them, that this was all new to her. It's worth being honest about how hard that is to believe. Stephan and Jennifer had been together for roughly 7 years. He lived in her house on and off. He shared a bed with her daughter regularly, sometimes with Jennifer in the room, sometimes without her. Detectives pushed her on this directly, telling her that no matter what she was shown, her first instinct kept being to protect Stephan rather than her daughter. Jennifer would later tell reporters she looked back on those years and realized how much she'd been lied to, that Sterns was, in her words, a master manipulator. But in the days right after Madeline disappeared, before any of that was public, her defensiveness towards Sterns raised serious questions about how much she had known, or chosen not to know, about what was happening under her own roof. She was never charged in Madeline's death and has been treated publicly as a key witness rather than a suspect, though the question of what she knew has followed her since. On March 1st, 5 days after Madeline was reported missing, a witness came forward. They told police they'd seen a man matching Stephan's description standing next to a silver sedan on Hickory Tree Road, holding a tire iron, looking frightened. At the time, the witness had assumed the man was just dealing with car trouble, but it placed Stephan and his car near a rural wooded stretch of Osceola County on the very day Madeline vanished. Acting on that tip, investigators searched the area. They found Madeline's body in a wooded spot off the road, hidden among a row of bamboo. An autopsy conducted by the Orange County Medical Examiner's Office determined her cause of death was strangulation, and her death was classified as a homicide. Investigators also noted that Madeline was wearing only socks when she was found. There were no shoes anywhere near the scene, and the socks themselves were clean, consistent with the theory that she had never actually walked to school at all, that she had died at or near the home before her body was ever moved. With Madeline found, the case against Stephan Sterns grew fast and grew heavy. In March 2024, the state attorney's office added dozens more charges, eventually more than 60 counts tied to sexual battery, lewd and lascivious molestation, and possession of material depicting the sexual abuse of a child. Then, in April 2024, an Osceola County grand jury indicted him on first-degree murder. Kissimmee's police chief said at the announcement that Sterns had made calculated moves to get rid of Madeline's belongings and hide her body in the woods days before anyone even reported her missing. In June 2024, prosecutors announced they would seek the death penalty. Sterns pleaded not guilty to everything for well over a year. His defense team filed motion after motion, arguing at different points to have evidence thrown out, to keep pre-trial hearings closed to the public, and even that the death penalty itself amounted to cruel and unusual punishment. He was scheduled to face 2 separate trials, one for the sexual abuse charges, another later in the year for the murder charge, both carrying the possibility that he'd spend the rest of his life in prison, or worse. Then, in July 2025, just as jury selection was about to begin in the sex crimes trial, Sterns abruptly changed course. He pleaded no contest to the first-degree murder of Madeline Soto and pleaded guilty to all 20 remaining counts of sexual abuse against her. The plea meant the death penalty was off the table. At sentencing, Osceola County Circuit Judge Keith Karsten handed down life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder, plus an additional life sentence for the sex offenses. Madeline's father, Tyler Wallace, spoke directly to Sterns in the courtroom before the sentence was handed down.
I can't grasp it. I can't grasp the selfishness of you, the deplorability of your actions. You're depraved. You're weak. You're a coward. You're a sneak thief. You crept into a family and took advantage and exploited them when they were weak.
I can't grasp the selfishness of you, the deplorability of your actions, he told him. You're depraved. You're weak. You're a coward. He added that time wouldn't heal what had happened to his daughter, and it wouldn't. What makes this case so difficult to sit with isn't just the violence of it, though that alone is almost unbearable. It's the years leading up to it. Madeline lived, by all accounts, without a real bedroom of her own, sleeping instead in the bed of the adult who was abusing her, in a house where the warning signs, in hindsight, were sitting in plain view the entire time. A grown man's belongings taking priority in the household. A 13-year-old with anxiety and no space to call her own. A relationship where the adults closest to her either didn't see what was happening or didn't want to. Whatever the truth of Jennifer Soto's knowledge turns out to be, the fact remains that the one adult whose full-time job it was to protect Madeline Soto did not, and the one who was supposed to be a stable presence in her life turned out to be the person who ended it. Kissimmee held vigils for Madeline in the days after her body was found, candles lit in a parking lot for a girl the whole community had spent 4 days searching for, hoping against hope she'd be found alive. She wasn't. And the story that came out afterward, piece by piece, through phone records and license plate cameras and a trash bag pulled out of a dumpster, showed a betrayal that started long before that Monday morning in February, one that had been hiding inside an ordinary-looking house in an ordinary-looking neighborhood the entire time. Thank you for watching. If this story affected you, please take care of yourself before moving on to anything else today. We'll see you in the next one.